This isn't the typical Easter message, but it's when Jesus first tells the plan, which we then celebrate when Easter comes around, the resurrection day. But before I begin, I'm going to say a four-letter word. We don't like to hear four-letter words, do we? But they come out of our mouths. And this one does quite a bit. It comes out of the mouths of children. This word will grab your attention every time you hear it. Now, I'm going to say it, but please realize it's quotation marks, okay? You know, it's in the context of you need to know what the word is. Here's the word. Oops. Do you like to hear that word? I don't like to hear that word. Sometimes other four-letter words follow that word, that four-letter word, but O-O-P-S, oops. If you're a parent of a child that can talk and you hear in the other room, oops, it makes you cringe. If that oops is followed by a crashing noise, it rises the level to fearful. If then you walk and your worst suspicions are there and it's your grandmother's china, it brings anger. Depending who says the word and the context of what is said can raise the anxiety level. For instance, you don't want to hear oops right after the electrician cuts the wire. You don't want to hear oops as the dentist is drilling, or when the surgeon is cutting and you're under general anesthesia. Oops. Or any president at any time, especially when they're around the red button. You don't want to hear, oops. But here's something. You don't want to hear God say, oops. I never saw that coming. Would God say that? Oh, look at the time, I'm late. I knew I should have made that left turn at Albuquerque. For all those who remember Bugs Bunny. Oh well, practice makes perfect. Here's something. God never says, oops. That's, by the way, it's your first blank. It's over the title, if you're wondering. Half sheets. Whoo, you got a half sheet again. Oh no. Now, even though God never makes a mistake, He never gives bad directions. He's never late, never blindsided. He never needs to ask for directions. We still doubt Him, don't we? He's never made a mistake. Why would we think, oh, I'm the exception? My situation's different. Sometimes we act as if God doesn't know what He's doing because we think we could do better. But you're in good company. Do you know another group of people who at times thought they had a better idea than Jesus? The disciples. The disciples sometimes heard Jesus say things, plan things, say here's what's going, and they, Jesus, don't you know? Jesus, that's not a good idea. And sometimes they would actually, and in this story, they would even say it. So let me ask before we go into the story, have you ever doubted God? Have you ever doubted God's timing? You're late, God. If you had only done that earlier. If we don't say it, we feel it. Have we ever doubted God's placing? God, why am I here? Today we're going to be looking at doubting God's planning. What are you doing? So, looking at Matthew chapter 16. Again, I'll put the scriptures up here for those who will be watching later as well. But to go into the story, it says when Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, He asked the disciples, "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" And they replied, some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and still others, Jeremiah or one of the prophets. And so they're giving what the consensus is of all those who've heard him preach and those who are talking about him. And then Jesus directs a very important question that we all need to answer. But what about you? Who do you say I am? And for once in his life, Simon says something smart. Simon Peter answered, "You are the Christ, the Son of the living God." The disciples, in a rare exception, finally understand something. They finally understand who Jesus is. That yes, he's a prophet, but he's so much more than a prophet. Yes, he's a good teacher, but he's far beyond being just a great teacher. Yes, he does miracles, but he's not just a miracle worker. He's not just a representative of God. No, Jesus, you're the Messiah. You're the Christ. You're the one we've been looking for. You are the very Son of God. You are divinity in flesh. And Jesus goes on and says that, Peter, you didn't get that on your own. My Father made you say the right answer. And so they finally get it. And now Jesus says, all right, now that you know who I am, let me tell you the game plan. And they've been with him probably just under 3 years, getting ready to go near to the end of Jesus' life. And so let me share you my plan. This is what it is. He warned his disciples not to tell anyone he was the Christ. And so the first part of the plan is, don't tell. Now later on he says tell. Go and tell. But at this point, I'll explain in just a little bit why, but at this point in time, here they're going, we finally found the Christ. We can't wait to tell anybody. And the first thing he says is, don't tell. There's time and place for everything. This is not the time. Don't tell. But Jesus, we want people. Don't tell. Okay, you must know better. And then he continues on. Second, I'm going to Jerusalem. From that time on, Jesus began explaining to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem. Now, if you're reading, stop. Because here's what the disciples are going to be thinking. Yeah, he's going to Jerusalem. He's going to go in there and he's going to say, I'm him who you're waiting. Show me those Romans. I'm going to beat them all up. I'm going to conquer. I'm going to be your king now. And this is what they were thinking. This was the common thought of what the Messiah was supposed to look. And so they were already going, all right, yeah, and he's going to Jerusalem, and he's going to really do some stuff. I'm going to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders, the chief priests and teachers of the law, and that he must be killed, and on the third day be raised to life. Imagine, we already have the whole story, right? This is the Sunday after Passover, and this is the first day of the week, and this is when we celebrate that Jesus rose from the grave. And we already know the story. We're reading this in Matthew chapter 16, probably about 6 months before it happened, and we're going, you bet, yeah, you're right, Jesus, all that's going to happen. Boy, you know everything. But imagine his disciples who are in the middle of the story say, what? We must have heard that wrong. You see, because again, everyone thought that the Messiah would come and he would get rid of all their enemies and all this other stuff. The Messiah dies? Jesus, you're reading out of the wrong story. But this is one reason why Jesus says, don't tell who I am yet. Because their thought of what Christ is, Messiah is not who he really is. Jesus says, I'm going to Jerusalem to suffer. Suffer at the hand of the religious leaders. No, Jesus, you got that wrong. You got that wrong. The religious leaders are looking for the Messiah. They're going to recognize you. I'm going to Jerusalem to die. No, Jesus, wait. You're the one who's going to be killing. You're going to get all those bad Romans out of here. And I'm going to Jerusalem to rise. Jesus says this like 4 or 5 times, and they never get this part. We get this part. We're going, yep, that's what happens. That's what we're celebrating today. Yeah. We know the whole story. And so Peter, who just said something so beyond him of saying who Christ was, walks up to Jesus to straighten him out. Peter took him aside and he began to rebuke Jesus. Listen, are not our hearts there when things aren't going the way we think they're going and all that? God, what are you doing? You're rebuking God. Well, notice Peter does survive this, but he does get rebuked back. Never, Lord. This shall never happen to you. Bad plan. You don't know what you're talking about, Jesus. We think sometimes it's wrong, just like the disciples. Because we're in the middle of the story. We don't see the end. They doubt his plan. We doubt his plan. And so Jesus turns to Peter and rebukes him. He said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You want to talk about a change over a short conversation? Blessed are you, Peter, son of John. Flesh and blood did not reveal this to you, but my Father in heaven. You are speaking divine words. You're speaking the words of the devil. You are a stumbling block to me. You're trying to trip me up. You do not have in mind the things of God, but the things of man. See, when we doubt, we forget the big picture. You don't have the things of, you don't have in mind the things of God. God has the complete picture. Again, regarding this story, we have the big picture too. We see it. We celebrate it now. And we could read passages like that and say, wow, Jesus really knew his stuff. He knew the plan. And we, oh wow, it was so awesome. But in the middle of the story, when we forget the big picture that God is sovereign, God is in control, and no matter what happens in whatever area of life, we need to realize God is not scratching his head up in heaven going, now what do I do? Because you know what happens? We think God's playing it, and we take things into our own hands. You don't have in mind this big picture that God knows beginning and the end. He's still in control. We doubt because we think only of ourselves. You don't have in mind the things of God, but the things of men. You're just thinking about you. You're just thinking about Peter. You guys were talking earlier about who's on the right side, who's on the left side. You know, we want to rule with you, Jesus, and then you're going to die. You're thinking of yourself, and many times when we're going through tragedy and all this other stuff, we get very inward focused and we forget that God is still in control and that God still loves us and God has a plan. We have our minds on the things of just us and our little world and woe me. When Job, who did nothing wrong, nothing deserving the tortures that he went through, the tortures of losing his children and all of his livelihood, the tortures of having a sickness that just destroyed his body, and then he has a bunch of friends who say, you must have done something wrong, you know, and you know, and that's the whole book of Job in just a couple minutes. But going through all this, Job does start to get introspective and, oh, I wish I was never born. I wish I was, and he's just thinking in the moment of just himself. And it's at the end when God reveals himself and he reveals what he's made and where were you when I made this and where were you? Were you the one who counseled me? And when he finally gets a bigger picture of God, he realizes his place. And even his place, the sufferings in their place. When we ask why, we're doubting his plan. But if you're thinking why and feeling why, ask why. Be honest. Let God correct you. Come to God with your doubts. And so after this, Jesus says, now that I've told you the game plan for my life, I'm going to die, I'm going to Jerusalem, and I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to die, and I'm going to rise. He then turns to his disciples and also to us and says, now here's my game plan for you. Do you want to know God's plan for you? It's to make you wealthy and healthy and wise. Then Jesus told said to his disciples, if anyone would come after me, he must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. That's not what I hear on TV. That if I just rub Jesus the right way, then I'll get everything I need. He'll bless me, bless me, bless me. Now listen, if God's blessed you, wonderful, but listen, that's self-centered, not God-centered. If He blesses you, it's so that you can share that with others so that others can be blessed and hear about Him. But anyway, Jesus says, listen, here's my game plan for your life. My game plan for my life is I'm going to Jerusalem, I'm going to suffer, and I'm going to die, and I'm going to rise. Here's your game plan. Deny yourself. What does that mean? Well, I really want that last slice of pizza. Well, I'll go deny myself. Now, that's probably a good idea, but that's not what Jesus is talking about. Life is not about me. Now, you can go, okay, well, then I'll think about others, and that's good. That's a step better. But no, life is about Jesus. As we studied for weeks, focus on Him, cling to Him, and all this other stuff's going to be straightened out. My life is not about me. It's about you. Because, you know, when you read this, deny yourself, take up your cross, and follow me. Can I skip the first two? And just follow Jesus, you know? Take up your cross. That does not mean, and this is no, if you have a cross necklace, that's wonderful, it's beautiful, but that's not what he's talking about either. Complete submission. It says in the book of Philippians, talking about Jesus, that He obeyed, completely submitted Himself to the Father to the point of death. Yes, even death on the cross. I submit to you. If that means a loss of job, if that means my health, if that means the cross, I still submit to you. And follow me. Now we're going, all right, that's easy. Okay, Jesus, you know, you're going, I'll just keep walking. Oh, you're going over here. But listen. It is a continual realigning of our lives. A continual realigning of our lives. Because you're going, all right, Jesus, I'm following you. And then Jesus, but Jesus, I don't want to go over there. I want to keep going over here. Are you ever that way? But I want to do that. No, okay, all right. I'm going to realign. I'm going to go back where I'm going to follow you. And it is a continual day by day, moment by moment. Jesus, adjust me. Help me to think like you. Help me to be like you. Spirit, work through me. And so it's not Randy who's doing the deciding, but Randy who's simply following you. And even though you go places, I don't know why you're going there, I will still follow you. But I like my plan. What we say to God is, I think I have a better idea for how my life should go than you. Now, don't look innocent. Oh, I don't ever think that. Okay, confession time. Did anybody sin this week? All right, okay, there's a few people who have been really good this week. No, listen, trust me. He who says they're without sin is not, okay. We have all sinned, whether in speech or action or inaction or whatever it is. I hate to say not a weekly thing, but probably a daily thing. But every time that you sin, you're saying, God, I choose my plan over your plan. God, I think I know better. I know you warned me about that, but God, I'm the exception to the rule. Is that not what we decide? Oh, no, 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 I can handle this. God never says what? We're going to be looking at this next couple weeks. If He never says, oops, why do we doubt it with our life? Jesus said, I'm going to Jerusalem. I'm going to suffer. I'm going to die. I'm going to rise. And Jesus predicted months in advance what other people, not what He did for Himself, what other people did to Him. And then He predicted His own resurrection. And it happened. Wow, Jesus. On Easter time, we celebrate the resurrection. We celebrate Jesus, you are in control. Jesus, you are Lord. I can trust you. Because if you pulled that plan off, and you did, you've got plans for me. So help me to deny myself. Help me to submit in taking up my cross. Help me to follow you. Maybe there's somebody you need to forgive. Oh, but God, you don't know. No, I told you to forgive. That's my plan. Maybe God leads you to help somebody who doesn't deserve it. All I have to do is look in the mirror and say, God, how many times have you helped me? And I didn't deserve it. Give to that cause. But God, I had other plans for... I trust you. I ask you to bow your heads, close your eyes. I do that so that nothing else is distracting you. God's first plan for your life is to know His Son, Jesus. He did suffer. He did die. And what He was doing there is He was taking our sin and our punishment for our sin on Himself. But when He took the worst, He still rose on the third day. He was victorious over sin and over death. And so when we put our trust in Him, He helps us to be victorious over sin and death. That He gives eternal life. So maybe for you, maybe, those listening at home or you here in this room, have you not walked down an aisle, got baptized, went to Sunday school, or I'm not saying nothing, all these things are good, but listen, it doesn't do you any good unless you truly, truly have received Christ. You've surrendered your life to Him. As He put it, deny yourself, take up your cross, and then follow me. Maybe today's that decision. Jesus, by faith, I give my life to you because you gave your life to me. We who are already believers in this room and at home, that's still the plan. And every time that you're like, I don't want to deny myself. I don't want to take up my cross. And Jesus, I don't like where you're leading, so I want to go my way. Remember what we celebrate this time of year. That Jesus denied Himself. That Jesus literally took up His cross. And we're asked to follow Him. So Jesus, I know that means different things for different people in this room. But as we celebrate that you died for us and then rose from the grave, and we realize You have a plan for our life. You want us to be a part of what you're about. What a privilege. So God, help us to receive what it means to deny, to take up the cross, to follow you. I pray this, Jesus, in your name. Amen. As normally after the service, I hang out here. If you would like to talk to me about your relationship with Christ, maybe you're saying, you know, there's some things I'm struggling with. I'd like to pray with you. Maybe you would like to know how you can come to know Jesus as Savior. I would love to share that with you. God bless you and have a blessed day.